Hey guys, and welcome back to Brexit. Brexit England, Northern Ireland, and Eastern Europe. And in Brexit England, I told a Brexiter a joke, a simple child's joke. What does the Loch Ness monster eat? Fish and chips. And the Brexiter looked at me with squinty eyes, scratched their head, and yeah, but if the Loch Ness monster was eating chips, then we would have spotted the Loch Ness. And I said, look, just forget it. Just don't overthink it. This is Great Britain, where 95% of the politicians hate the bones off of you. You can just tell that by the way they look at you, as if they smell something stink. British Steel have announced they are to get rid of over 3,000 members of staff, which is going to absolutely decimate the area where British Steel operates, which is Port Talbot. I don't know what I was going to say Port Stanley, because I'm sure that's in I'm sure that's in the Malvinas Islands. But so they've announced closures. And when I say British Steel, I actually mean Tata, because British Steel is owned by Tata, who is like an Indian company. So we should be calling this Indian Steel, really, because it's a long time ago, yeah, since they sold out British Steel. You know, they've just given these bitches £500 million. Right, so that they could get rid of over 3,000 members of staff, just decimating the area where these people live. And you know why that is? Because the politicians in this country, they hate the people. This is in Wales, right? The British government, the English government have stepped in and said, "Oh well, we just gave them £500 million to help save some jobs there." Really, we're the only G20 country here that doesn't own its own steel. That's who Britain is. And now we're going to be the only G20 country who does not produce its own steel. Tell me, right, in a country that's built of fucking steel, cars are made of steel, houses have all got steel in them, all the builders have all got steel in them, everything in your house, there's steel all over it, everywhere. Steel everywhere. How the hell can you allow this to happen? You sold British Steel how many years ago? Because that's another thing that they sold off. Because remember, that's what it's called. It was called British Steel. Like how they sold off. Whether it's British Telecom, British Steel, British Gas. I'm sure they sold off. British Petroleum. This is the thing. Everything British has been sold off, right? And now British Steel, again, owned by the Indians, Tata Steel, now is in complete problems again. Well, they're using a new green furnace, but the simple truth is, that it should be our government who still control British Steel, are still in control of British Steel, because it shouldn't have been sold in the first place. Right? They've allowed other countries to say, oh, well, you know what? We're just going to dump a load of cheap steel on Britain. Well, they should have said, no, you won't. No, you won't. You're not going to come here and fuck up our steel industry. No, I don't think so. So you can go to another country and do that. Don't come here and expect to do that. But as I tell you, because the government, right? So because the politicians hate, as I said the government, but it's politicians, right? So that when I say 95% of them, right, there's only a few probably in the Labour and and the Greens, right. The majority of the rest of them, you're not going to find any in the Conservatives that like the people in this country. They hate the people in this country with passion, the Tories do, and that has got to be the truth, right? You've got probably a few Labour, and mainly the Greens, right? But other than that, right, these people cannot stand the people in this country. If they could, they would not have sold off all of the assets of the country that should belong to the people. You don't do that to people who you like. Okay, that's why now we've got British Steel. So they're trying to call it. It's not British Steel. It's owned by the Indians. It's called Tata. Okay, and they are a private company, right? They're who are there to make money, right? So much times before, our government have had to prop them up. as with the previous owners who they've sold British Steel, because it's been sold a few times from since it went private. It's been sold a good few times, right? So because because it's really a public company, and this is the problem, trying to run your country, right, as a private, as a business. You can't run a country as a business. Countries do not run, because there are too many people in there, right, that have got different circumstances. And that's one of the main things, right? Businesses, right, charge people the same price. It's one price suits all with businesses. If you go to any of the high street takeaways, for example, or or takeaway restaurants, right, one of the fast food ones, Burger King, McDonald's, KFC, Domino's, Subway, whichever one. If I go in there, right, and I order 6 nuggets, right, and I don't know how much it is. I don't know how much they are. I'd say let's just say it's £5, right? And Dickie Branson walks in behind me, without Jeffrey Epstein. But Dickie Branson walks in with, Jeffrey Epstein's dead, but so we could have been talking about before he died. But he walks in behind me, right? They're not going to say to him, well, they're not going to look and think, oh, that's Richard Branson, Yeah, well, 6 nuggets is £25. No, he gets charged the same price as me. So that's why countries can't run, as businesses, because there's too many, and you've got to treat everyone the same when you're running a business, right? And not all of us can afford to live in big mansions. Now, if you live in a big mansion, obviously you're paying a higher electric bill, but that's only because you're using more. Not because they say, oh well, you've got a big mansion, so you can pay £2,000 more than everybody else a year. No, you're paying £2,000 a year more because you're using more. Right? So that's how the circumstances, right? That's why countries cannot run as businesses, and they've been trying this project for the longest of time, and look where it's left us. It's left us with them having to give Tata Steel £500 million of your good hard-earned cash, right, to a private company, and all because the politicians hate your guts. And welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you so much for all your messages sent me. Special thanks to everybody who signed up to my channel. I feel so blessed with so much people that have signed up, so thank you so much for that. I'll go for all your messages. I'll answer as many as I can, but I will like all your messages for definite. There has been a migrant that has invaded in Scotland, and the English government, with their cheeky self, has said to the Scottish government, listen, they must leave. They got to go. Cannot stay here. A beluga whale has been seen in the waters of Scotland, right? That's the migrant. Right? Now, you see, beluga whales, they stay like the Arctic. So they like their water dense, cold, right? Like it's ice. So it must be really cold in Scotland if they've got a beluga whale up there, right? So it's about beautiful sight though when you see this thing, just because someone had an aerial picture of it, massive, but absolutely stunning. This thing is just like, but it's come down, because the water's so cold down there, so it's come around and you know what, I'm going to have a little holiday in Scotland, right, and then I'll probably make my way back to the Arctic. Really, really beautiful thing though, absolutely, just so stunning. We'll move over to America, because Donald Trump versus E. Jean Carroll. Donald Trump, he's been in the court, right? And what he's been doing, he's been in there and he's been muttering under his breath, saying like how it's a setup and all this. And E. Jean Carroll can hear him, right? Obviously, so that means, but members of the jury can hear him. So the judge had to stop, and the judge said, listen, does anybody believe that ex-President Trump has been treated wrong in this, right, differently or anything like that? And he said, can you raise your hands? And the person who raised their hand was Donald Trump. He was asking the jury members, and Donald Trump raised his hand, right? And then Donald Trump's, this is his lawyer, Alina Hubbard. I mean, this woman is just so stupid. She is just, you just have to wonder, Donald Trump's got her there because she looks good. That's it. Because when I tell you the judge was patronizing this woman, that you wouldn't want to see a member of your family like that patronized in that way. And it's patronizing her because she was being an idiot. She's there trying to introduce evidence, right, into a trial, right, before the judge has had a look at it, or before the defense has had a look at it, or the prosecution, whoever it is. You're not, this is something, this is like, it's law 101. This is very simple, right? You cannot do that, right? You can't just pick up a document and start reading it in the court when the judge doesn't know what the hell you're doing, right? And the other side has to know what's in that document as well, because you're asking a witness about it, so they have to all know. They have to all know. You can't spring stuff on people like that, right? In that way from a document. You're just simply not allowed to do that. And she, right, so the best thing she could do was jump up and say to the judge, well, you can't talk to me. The judge said, listen, sit down. Right? If it was me, I'd say, just sit your narrow ass down and shut the hell up, bitch. That's what I would have said to her, but then I probably got disbarred. But she, right, is going to find herself getting disbarred. This woman should really look at what's happened to, Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, the Kraken woman, Eastman, all these people, right? Some of them have lost, well, especially let's put Rudy Giuliani. He's definitely, Rudy Giuliani's lost his house. Right? He's lost all his properties. Right? He's been disbarred. So he can't, the only place he's probably making money now is from his podcast. But all of these things, right, have just destroyed. Rudy Giuliani making a complete fool of himself for Donald Trump, right, for the £20,000 a day that he didn't even get, right, made a complete idiot of himself, right, and completely trashed his whole life, right. The best thing Rudy Giuliani could do is probably die as quickly as possible. Right, because he's gonna the couple of black chicks he's got to give a whole heap of money to, right? So and that must be really burning him, especially as we know that he's a racist ass. So that must be really hurting him, really, And Donald Trump won't help him. Donald Trump won't help him with anything. Donald Trump done a fundraiser for him a couple of months back, but that probably didn't even touch the sides in what Rudy Giuliani actually owes. You got the other one, Mike Lindell, who's lost his fortune. He's lost his whole fortune, right, because he met Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is still living in a gold-plated Mar-a-Lago, right? And all these guys, these guys are probably might even be sofa surfing now, right? Because they've had to claim bankruptcy, and they've had to and some of the judgment I think that Rudy Giuliani's got doesn't because he claimed bankruptcy, that means he still has to pay them two women. So Alina Hubbard, she's a lot younger than Rudy Giuliani, like that Jenna Ellis. She's another young lawyer, right? So those people, they can't afford to lose their license to practice law. They can't afford to, like Jenna Ellis. I think she's lost hers at the moment, and she can't afford to lose hers. She's got to try and get it back. So that's why she pled. I think she pled guilty. So she's probably hoping that that she might be able to get a sentence where it doesn't affect her law license. But that's going to be really, really, really hard, because those people, they're all ex-lawyers, they're all judges and lawyers themselves. So and they're not really easy on people, especially when they do stupidness like these people are all doing for Donald Trump. Two-year-old Bronson Battersby. Really sad story, Bronson Battersby, because he's like 2 years old, and he was like he was just a couple of inches too short to actually reach the fridge where he could have found some food, and he would have been able to eat, because it was Christmas, and this, and then the social did call the police twice. Right now, I'm not blaming the police or the social, because they it was over Christmas, so literally anything could have they could have been they could have been out, visiting relatives or something like that. But I'm just kind of shocked that no one heard this child crying, because this child must have been crying, because he would have been starving hungry and he would have soiled himself as well. So he would have been bawling his head off at some stages throughout the 14 days, because the dad, well, it was 14 days that people had last had contact with him. And I mean, the mum, I've got to look at the mum and say, well, hold on, how the hell have you got a 2-year-old, right? The last time you spoke to them was, I think Christmas Eve. And I think the neighbour spoke to them. Well, the neighbour must have spoke to them, I think, Boxing Day or something like that, right? And then 14 days. There must be 14 days after Boxing Day is when the social law, the police, got actually let into the property, and that's when they found him dead by his father's feet, who had had a heart attack. And because it was Christmas time, and they had moved his snacks, because obviously his snacks was in a cupboard where he could get them, so then they moved them to a higher cupboard, because obviously he would, he's 2 years old, so he keeps on going after the snacks. But it's just really, it's just such a sad story. Do you know what I mean? That could happen in this country. It is very, just I just wonder how comes the mum hadn't been in contact with her child, right, for so long. And I don't even think it was the mum that got in contact with the landlady, because the landlady let the police or the social services in. I don't think it was the mum that got in contact with them then. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know how long after the mum, but the mum's all over the newspapers, speaking about it now. And I'm like, well, I don't understand how you wasn't checking on your 2-year-old. You wasn't checking, all over Christmas. I mean, it's Christmas. I mean, it's an exciting time for a 2-year-old. So why you wasn't checking on them all that time? And had you given him his presents and all that type of thing? So I don't know. It's a very, very sad story. Benjamin Netanyahu has finally come out and said there's not going to be no two-state solution, and America, you can stick it where the sun don't shine. And our media over here is like, oh my God, we can't believe it. He's saying, but all this time, yeah, it's not like they didn't know. Benjamin Netanyahu's been saying this from the 70s. I don't know why they're all pretending, right? Because they've known, the Israelis have never wanted a two-state solution. Not for the last 75 years. They haven't wanted a two-state solution. They've never wanted a two-state solution. Their plans was always to go there and take all of the land, right? And in fact, they wanted, they actually would, if they had their way, they'd wipe Jordan out as well, right? So Netanyahu coming out and saying this is nothing new at all, because this is what we've known all the time, right? And now, all this fake, surprise. I want to see what Biden's going to do now, because he's just making Biden look like a complete idiot. Right? Biden's losing so much support, just the same as Starmer losing so much support over their support for the genocide what's taking place in Gaza. It's just. I don't understand why, especially our media over here, just, the pretense, like as if they haven't known this. I mean, the Israelis, they keep on voting in Netanyahu. So what does that tell you? Netanyahu has been murdering Palestinians from the 60s. Him personally, he's probably killed a couple of thousand himself personally. And then, he's probably, and then he's probably had like maybe 200,000 at his hands dead of the Palestinians anyway. So because I mean, this is 30,000 this time, and there's been a good few occasions when they've done this under Netanyahu. So it's not like it's not like Netanyahu has said anything, right, that the world hasn't known. The world's just been pretending. So, oh, look at them, look, the Palestinians, so they're saying from the river to the sea, look, they're saying it from the river to the sea. Actually, while the Israelis are actually driving the Palestinians from the river to the sea. They're actually doing it. Right, but you know something, it's a lot worse if you say it. Just like it's a lot worse, right? If you're in London and you say if you're saying stuff about Israel when they're out on the demonstrations, so look, all that stuff they're saying are anti-Semitic. Forgetting about the over 30,000 dead people. That's what's more important. The people in London, right, that they're saying are supporting Hamas, That's more important than the over 30,000 people who have been murdered in Palestine. And Netanyahu has come out and he's told the truth. He said it's not even the quiet part. Right? What Netanyahu's doing now, he's taunting them. He's saying, what can you do? What should actually happen is they should do exactly what they've done to the Russians, right? To all Israelis around the world. Strip them of their assets, take their aeroplanes, take their yachts, right? Take their football teams, right? Take their houses, take their cash. That's what they should do. But will they? No, not at all. In the same way, yeah, the white Jews are allowed, right, to go to Israel, to go to Israel so they can go to Gaza and commit war crimes and then come back to this country and just walk straight back in. You can't do that in any black or brown country. You can't go over there and help them in a war and commit war crimes and then come back to this country without your ass ends up in Pentonville or in Chelmsford or in Belmarsh. The biggest strikes Northern Ireland has seen for 50 years. 16 unions involved, right? So that was all the loads of council workers, and it's just 16 unions involved. Right? It's a massive strike. What's going on in I believe it's in it's because it's in Northern Ireland. Yeah, so it's in Northern Ireland. Massive strike. Because a lot of their unions and that they're all together, yeah. Whereas over here, they've used the same tactics as they use with countries, with like a divide and conquer of So that's why our unions are not together. You'll have like people from one union when the other union is going on strike. Why don't you get back to work? Right. Look at those train drivers, right? They're getting like 55 grand, right? Why don't you just go back to work? They get too much money. So they say. Rishi Sunak has got the Rwanda bill through, and so yesterday he held a press conference yesterday. That just shows you, yeah, the future they're setting. That if Labour ever get in power, that they're going to be attacking Labour on immigration. Oh, look at them on the immigration. They're going to be attacking Labour on it constantly, because he held a press conference, right, and every single person is scratching their head thinking, like, what the fuck is this about? What are you doing? Right, because he's really on the wind up. Even like Lee Anderson actually voted. The man resigned and then he voted for the deal, because when he went into the no lobby, right, the Labour politicians was laughing at him. They was giggling like a bunch of schoolgirls. And at that stage he said, oh no, well, that was it. I went into the yes lobby and I voted yes. So that's the level of our politicians. A few clowns have a little laugh, right? And they might not have even been laughing at you. They might have been laughing at. There might have been a private joke what they was laughing at, right? But you changed what is a really important vote, because there was 11 rebels, and you could say that those people are the KKK of the Tory party. There's 11 of them, whereas the day before there was like probably 55 or 60. But the majority of them, as the Tories normally do, because they're very regimented like this, they all pulled together. If anytime you find yourself a Tory and think to yourself, yeah, listen, this Tory seems like he's okay or she's okay, or they or them are okay, right? Anytime you find one like that, right, just look at their voting records. That's all you have to do. Just look at their voting record, because every single time when the Tories vote, they vote against the people. Whatever it is, so long as it's against the people, they vote for it. If it's against the people, that's what they're going to vote for. So you look at their voting records, and that's what they do all the time, right? So it was kind of, very, very, it was hilarious, because Tasos Coffee, one of the Labour politicians, yeah, said about Gagali, right, which is I think that's how you pronounce it, right, and said it's the and said because that's the capital of Rwanda, and that's and then Tasos Coffee stood up and said, "Look at these people; they don't even know what country they're talking about." Okay, someone should have said to her, listen, just a favour, love, sit your big fat oversized ass down, and she has got a big fat oversized ass. Sit it down, because this woman is an idiot. You think, didn't you read up about Rwanda before you decided to open your stupid mouth? But before you decided to go to a debate in the Houses of Parliament, this is not in a university or even in a school. This is the House of Parliament, where when you speak, right, you've got to know exactly what you're talking about. Right? You can't go in the House of Parliament and go, it's ridiculous. And for her to make, she must, today and yesterday, she must feel like a right idiot. But then she probably doesn't, because she said she said and done really stupid things in the past, and that hasn't made her feel like an idiot. So why should this? No-go areas in schools. Some schools have got no-go areas, and I just find that story really amazing. Because I just think back to my school days. If we could have said to one of the teachers, like, "Yeah, sir, miss, this corridor is a no-go area for you. No go. Can't come down there." That wouldn't have worked well for us, because they could they could issue the cane when I was at school. And the thing is, I could never go home and say to my dad that I got canes at school. Because then he'd more than likely issue the belt, because he'd want to know why my ass was behaving badly in school. And my parents was always, as with all of our parents in school, when I was at school, was always 100% behind the teacher. And that's why in my time there could have never been no go areas in schools. That wouldn't have happened. They just said, okay, it's a no go area. It's a no go area for you because you got detention. The Princess of Wales is going to spend 2 weeks in hospital because she's having an abdominal operation. But the main story, King Charles is going into hospital, I think, next week for a prostate operation. When I first heard this, I thought, that's really absolutely fantastic. Not that he's going to prostate, but the fact that he's announced it. Because, over 20,000 people have come to have their prostate checked from since he's made that announcement. So that's the thing. That was, that makes it a brilliant announcement, because it will definitely save lives. If so many people are going and having themselves checked out, it will definitely save lives. So I have to say, well done to his Majesty. And let's speak about some Brexit, because I've got two Brexit stories. 79% fewer banking jobs in London since Brexit. And that is our services industry, because when they say Britain, that's what Britain produces, is services it produces. Well, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about financial services, not talking about the services that are provided in Sainsbury's or Tesco's or any of the other supermarkets, or in your local in your local restaurant. Not about that type of service, not hospitality. They're talking about services like your banking and insurance. Lloyd's of London, probably one of the oldest insurance companies in the world, right? So that's what they're talking about. And now 79% fewer jobs in banking in this country. One of the biggest things that this country sells. But that doesn't, you see, the thing is, the majority of us are not bankers or even know any bankers. So, there's a very small amount of workers, but it's a huge amount of money that they produce. So unfortunately, and we're going to finish on a Brexit bonus story. Due to Brexit, you can now buy pint-size wine bottles. Oh, sorry, pint-size bottles of wine. So you can buy a pint of wine, basically. I believe that's what it is. And I think they've been arguing with the EU over that for years because they wanted to bring that in for years. So now that, you know, with that and the yards and no, because we can't use meters, can we? So it must be feet and yards, whatever it was. They want to change it over to, and you know, and some metric measurements as well. So you know, when you go down to the when you take yourself down to the market, you can say, "Oh, I want a pound of potatoes. Do not give me a kilo, otherwise I take them and dash them at you one by one." Anyway, my friends, I have to bounce out of here. This, my friends, is By Any Means Necessary. I'm the MC John Ribs. It was really nice to speak to you guys. Comments below.